America to get whatever you want.
I understand.
That's the theme from Thus Spake Zarathustra, by the way.
Beer, made in the USA.
Another movie I highly recommend. He walks on water at the end of the movie, by the way. It doesn't, he's walking on the lake and he's looking down and he takes his umbrella and he sticks it down into the water. You can't understand. Terrific movie. To keep a society functioning, you have to volunteer and you have to participate. Trouble with participating in this stuff. Have you ever been on a board? Sat at a board meeting? The pun, board meeting? It really is exactly that. There's the board. I've even chaired meetings, and you just can't fix it. There's too many people that you have to respect and listen to that you think, what a waste of time this is. You can't just get the agenda done. Pardon?
Which board was that?
I was the president of the board of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship for a year. And,
No fun?
pardon?
No fun?
It was no fun. No fun. I was on the board for 4 years, but boy, it was no fun any of those years. Attending the meetings just once a month. And yet, my goodness, it's such a waste of time. And everybody wants, to say what they want to say. And everybody says the same things. But they all have to each have their own opportunity to say it, which is, part of the problem of things like that. But if you've ever watched the assembly meetings, especially when it's open for, public comment, and you've got so many different people come up and say the dumbest thing. Some of them are okay, but it's not that everybody in town is dumb. No, there are 3 or 4 people that are worth listening to. But listen, to the assembly members sitting there being calm and relaxed and not getting upset and saying, "Go away," things of that sort. That's amazing. And you think, what kind of patience do these people have to put up with this? They're being stoics. That's what they're doing. A stoic figures out a way to do their duty and attend to these kind of events and put up with it. And how do they keep their sanity? How do they keep their cool? How do you think they maintain themselves while listening to this stuff?
Probably not the first time they've been here. They probably had this happen
Practice certainly helps. Well, I think a perfect example of someone who explains this is Viktor Frankl. I think I have.
So you have an answer for me?
Yes. And the reason I think Frankl is really interesting is he was a psychiatrist, Jewish psychiatrist, captured and imprisoned in the Holocaust. In fact, it ended up in 3 or 4 different camps, as I recall. And he survived them. And a lot of it was luck, but an awful lot of it was his ability to be like a Stoic and internalize his thinking about himself. So that while the Nazis were beating him, or starving him, overworking him, and his body was being beat to death practically, although he survived just barely. You've seen images of people that have survived that, right? He kept himself separate internally from his body by being an observer of what was happening to his body and not thinking completely as one with his body. So he was separated from his body. Now, I mean, I remember being at basic training myself, in the military when I joined the Army. I already had a master's degree in philosophy when I joined the Army. Seems kind of crazy. Most people thought I was crazy. But here I am in basic training, and you've got the drill sergeants doing their job. Their job is to tear you down, destroy who you are, and then build you up as a member of the team, right? That's their job. And they know what they're doing. I mean, this has been done now for, quite a long time, so they've, it's not that the individual drill sergeants, I think, have figured out the best way to do things, but they've been trained how to do this, right? So I remember at the time, I don't think they still do it because there's changes in our society, but I remember them standing right in your face and saying, "You're dumber than whale shit at the bottom of the ocean, recruit," eating salad, getting salad. I was old enough that I had learned about something called roughage. I was eating salad, and the one drill sergeant looked at me and says, "Are you a rat?" I said, "Yes, drill sergeant." When they tell you dumb things, you don't laugh at them, because that just makes it worse for you, right? So don't laugh at the drill sergeant, when he says something dumb. "Are you a rabbit? What kind of a stupid thing is that?" No, you don't say that to a drill sergeant, right? "Yes, drill sergeant." And what's going on through my head is, I'm doing these push-ups, I'm doing all this, it's good for me, I'm fine with this. I'm observing. I wasn't actually being subjected to this kind of treatment. I was watching it happen. I was like learning, how do they do this? What are they doing? How are they doing it, etc. But I could see the impact it had on a lot of, the young people that were there. They had people in tears. I remember one recruit going, "I want to go home to my mommy." Really, they're good at this. By the way, that one recruit ended up going home to his mommy. He didn't stay. He didn't wash. Right? But in any case, what are you doing when you're surviving that kind of a situation? You're withdrawing, in a sense, from equating you yourself with the physical body that's experiencing this, so that in your mind, at least, you're watching what's going on, but you're not suffering. You're not being one with the torture, the torturee or whatever, right? You're watching it. And he did this as a medical doctor. He stood back and reflected on his situation without feeling it as an insult to himself. And as a result, he did not lose his understanding of who he was. What happened to a lot of individuals he describes in the Holocaust is that they were convinced they were worthless. They actually lost the will to live. And he said once someone lost that will to live, within a week or two, they were dead. So once you lose that, you literally can't survive any longer. And so Viktor Frankl, a fascinating individual. There are videos if you want to listen to him speaking, etc. So perfect example of the Stoic. And this is also the ethics behind things like the Nazis. Think about it. What did the Nazis argue when they were in Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trials, and they were under, trial for killing civilians? Well, my duty was to the higher command, and the higher command ordered me to do this. So if I've got a value system, right, I'm not supposed to value civilians or individuals that are not part of our considered society, right? So if the government tells me I'm supposed to line them up and shoot them and then bury them in a mass grave, I'm doing my duty by doing this. And if I didn't do that, they would kill me. It's also the philosophy of the military, our military. If you think about it, what's your first job? Well, to do your duty. So follow your orders, right? Now the thing is, officially, people in our military are supposed to be aware of the Geneva Conventions and not break the moral laws that those support. So you're not supposed to kill individuals. Well, we have difficulties with that. If you remember the Lieutenant Calley trials during the Vietnam era, Lieutenant Calley was found guilty of killing a lot of civilians in a village, ordering his men to kill a lot of members of the village. And that created a conflict in our own military. It seemed pretty obvious that he was following orders, and yet he was the scapegoat that ended up going to jail for it and not his superiors. So it's obviously a conflict in our own military. How do you manage when you feel like, wait a minute, you're ordering me to do this, but I don't think this is legal in the moral sense of the word, right? So how do you handle it? So the Stoic philosophy, it's an actual ethic, and when you're ordered to do something, your duty is to do that, not to be in conflict mentally because you have another ethic that you're using in conflict. Notice that in our map, our map of our society, you've got all these different ethical systems in conflict, and so you do have to actually figure out how to put one as a priority over another and so on. So you're in that kind of a situation here, right? Now the skeptics, I don't know, you could put the skeptics, I guess, in multiple places, but the thing about the official skeptics is they also participated in these society duties as well. I think especially of young parents today who, growing up in our school system and college, both decided to give up their beliefs. They don't believe in the religion that they grew up in, but then they have a child or two. And as the child is growing up, the children are growing up, they feel obligated to take those children to church. So they look around town and they try to find a church locally that they could accept and bring their child to, and they bring the child there for the religious education and that kind of communal experience. But when you talk to them about the beliefs associated with that church, they don't believe in any of that stuff. And that's kind of what a skeptic is like in my mind. They'll go along with the society and put up with it, but they don't really believe in it. So Agamemnon, as an example, being told by the priest that he had to sacrifice his daughter, he didn't really believe that the priest, had any influence, that the gods even maybe didn't exist, as far as he knew, but he did it anyway because he felt the social obligation to do what the society required him to do. So he went along with it. So, but in his mind, he was skeptical, and as a result, Agamemnon was tormented by the fact that he went along with what his society required of him, but at the same time killed his daughter to do this. Absolutely horrible situation. So the skeptics, another possibility. And then we get Plotinus. And Plotinus is a Neo-Platonist. And in fact, one of his teachers, Ammonius Saccas, was a Christian. So notice we've crossed into the Common Era, or Anno Domini, AD, right? And Plotinus now is a contemporary of the Christian community. And what's fascinating about Plotinus is that his philosophy as a Platonist is very similar to the Christian philosophy when they're thinking about how do you explain the nature of things, right? So you think of Christianity as primarily focused on, well, the mission of the Christ, right? And yet at the same time, it's in a society that has beliefs about the way things are. What were those common beliefs that everybody thought? Probably Platonists were what they believed in, and Plotinus is kind of a leading exemplar of that philosophy. So this is the example of someone